Oh, I'm doing the wrong screen. What's the problem? Screen 2. Okay. All right, so again, what? Is somebody joining? All right, so again, I think I might have inception myself. I think I figured it out. Hello. Hello. Okay. Sorry, I don't know what that was. Okay, so again, sorry about the Wi-Fi. Hopefully it'll clear up soon. Last class, we really dove into JavaScript full force. It was like it was a crash course, we might say. A lot of hand waving. Like, look at this stuff, isn't it cool? It does all this neat stuff. Let's get our hands dirty. Today, we'll actually sort of dive more into all that, start to understand a bit more about what everything is. We'll do a lot of review because we are pretty ahead. Honestly, last class we went through almost two classes worth of material. So we're pretty ahead. So we have time to sort of really dig into all of this. So today's the class title is Intro to jQuery, but we've already sort of done that. So we're kind of moving beyond. But the objectives today: recognize jQuery syntax. We've already looked at it, and we're going to get more familiar with it today. We're going to use selectors and jQuery functions to effectively manipulate the DOM, or the document, the page that we're on. And we've started on that. We're going to get better at that. And we're going to use some new things, variables, to store and use values. So that's going to be all new towards the end of the class. So here is our agenda. Like I said, we'll probably move this to the end because of the Wi-Fi issues. We're going to do a bit of review, and then we're going to do a lot of exercises today. So we'll do, we did the color switcher last class in vanilla JavaScript. We'll do it today in jQuery. And last class, we relied heavily on the CodePen tool to sort of make it an easy environment to work in. Today, we're going to look at how do we actually set this up in our own project to start working with jQuery and JavaScript. So we'll walk through all those things together. And then we'll do another exercise, pretty much all on your own with a frequently asked questions page, which is something we commonly see in the internet. And then we'll go into a new section, digging into JavaScript, where we'll talk about some more specifics on what are these things that we're actually looking at, how does JavaScript work, what are the names for the different things that we type in, and things of that nature. And then we'll do one more exercise, this time a scorekeeper, so we'll have some state there that we have to persist and grow on. And then finally, we'll look at the assignment for this weekend and get started on that together. Okay, so action past class. We are ahead though, so if at any point you feel like you don't understand something, please ask questions. We have plenty of time to sort of reflect on everything that we're doing. So don't feel like you're slowing down the course at all. Okay. So let's first thing do this. Sync up if you can. If you could get on Wi-Fi. Actually, we'll do this closer to the exercise, and maybe more people will be on. So let's do review first. Okay. So last class was really our crash course intro to programming, right? And we talked about what programming is. Well, programming really is just writing these very detailed instructions to our computer, in JavaScript in order to tell it something to do, right? Tell it how to solve some problem, how to react to some user input. And we have to be very specific and very precise in how we tell it. A single character, as you found out recently, can cause the whole thing to not work. Right, and so we're going to have to get very used to being critical of our own typing and looking at it, very critically to make sure there's no mistakes and things of that nature. And we talked about one tool that we can use to start thinking programmatically and thinking like a programmer is by breaking down problems into steps and then writing those steps in pseudocode, right? So not worrying about syntax and semicolons and different keywords and things of that nature, but just writing down the steps in a way that makes sense to you in order to start thinking of, how am I going to write this in code, as opposed to like maybe how I describe it to a friend, right? There's sort of a difference between talking to your very dumb computer and talking to, your very highly intelligent friends, right? They can assume a lot of things. They can make a lot of assumptions. Your computer can make no assumptions. It has no ability to do that. And so you've got to be very articulate in the way that we describe any set of instructions. So then we talked about specifically JavaScript and why are we learning it in this class? Well, the most obvious reason is because it's the only language that will run in the browser. But we also have this tangential benefit that it also happens to be one of the most popular languages out there at this time. It certainly has the highest velocity as far as languages and communities of developers go. It's a very fast-moving, exciting place to be, and so it's a cool place to be in this class where we're learning this language that's sort of on the cutting edge of software development. Yes?
What does it mean that runs in the browser? Does that mean anything that you look up on a search in like Internet Explorer, Chrome, or Mozilla has to be in JavaScript?
So what I mean runs in the browser. Okay, so the browser itself is a program, right? It's a program. Most of the browsers are written in these low-level languages that we talked about last class, like C, for instance. Like Chrome is written in C. It's and it's a program that's running. Within that program, our websites need to have some sort of interactive functionality. Okay, and we have to do that by programming, right? Like by writing in a programming language. The only programming language that our browser will recognize, the browser program will recognize, is JavaScript. So we can't write and say Python and expect it to work on our web pages. The browser doesn't know how to read Python, and it won't. So JavaScript is the only programming language you can use to bring interactivity to our websites. Does that make sense? Cool. Yeah, good. That was a great question because that's sort of like a hand-wavy thing to say in itself. Okay, and so the next thing we talked about is like this general approach that JavaScript takes when it's solving a problem, right? And we kind of looked at a bunch of websites and broke down all these different pieces of interactivity into this same paradigm, right? We're going to find some things, query for some things in our document, in our page. Maybe it's a button, maybe it's a paragraph, maybe it's an image. We're going to find something. We're going to wait or listen for some event. The events being a click, a scroll, a hover. And when those things happen, we're going to react to them by doing something like changing the HTML or changing the CSS, somehow modifying our page. And this is really like, we can fit most of the things we do in JavaScript into this paradigm. And when we're attacking a problem, we should really try to break it into these steps and see how it fits into these steps. And sometimes there's going to be some complicated things that happen in between these steps, potentially. But really, at the end of the day, this is what's happening. Cool. So then, we got really good with that, and we introduced jQuery. And I mentioned last time, jQuery is what we call a library for JavaScript. It's written in JavaScript. In fact, it is JavaScript itself. But it just defines a set of functionality that makes our lives easier as developers. We talked about sort of writing code as a metaphor for like writing cooking instructions, right? And in that metaphor, jQuery is our cookbook, right? It's a bunch of recipes that we can use, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time we want to use them. Okay. So one question that came up frequently, and especially in the exit tickets, is like, why would anybody use vanilla JavaScript, right? JavaScript without jQuery, if jQuery makes our lives so much easier? So I want to know, does anybody have any guesses as to why? I've sold it pretty hard, haven't I? Yeah. So So in order to answer that question, we have to start thinking like a front-end developer, okay? So as a front-end developer, what is our role? It's multifaceted. There's a lot of parts to it. Probably first and foremost is, we're here to make these awesome, cool-looking, functional websites, right? That's really the big thing that we're here to do. But along with that comes a bunch of other sort of sub-goals that are almost as important and that we're thinking about when we're developing a website. And one of those things is, we need our site to load fast. There's, been study after study that shows each, 100 milliseconds that you add to a page load, you lose X percentage of users, right? And Google did a ton of work optimizing the page load speed of different products of theirs, and they saw these huge boosts in retention when the page loaded faster, right? We've become accustomed to not waiting for things to load, and the more you make people wait, the more likely they are to leave your site or bounce from your site, right? So this is something we're thinking about. Also, when you're on the site, we want it to be performant. And what that means is, we want the animations to be smooth, and we want, different things to happen. As soon as I click, I want to see a reaction. I don't want there to be like lagging after I click, because I'm going to feel as a user that there's something wrong with the site, or it's an inadequate experience, right? So this is another goal I might have when I'm developing a site. So let me talk about these first two, right? So when I say load fast, a key component to loading fast is the size of your JavaScript files, okay? So we know that files are generally measured in kilobytes or megabytes or gigabytes. You may have heard of those sizes. And jQuery is a very robust library, and then gives us a lot of functionality. And because of that, it is a sizable library. It has a large file size. And if our goal is to make our page load as fast as possible, we may reevaluate whether or not we need jQuery, because there may be a time when we can get away with not using it and speeding up the performance of our site. So that's one possibility. There's also the fact that doing things in vanilla JavaScript tends to be, and this is on a very small scale, but tends to be faster to some degree. And so that's something to think about. Again, that's what we might call micro optimization. In the long run, it's not really a big gain there, but it is something to have in mind. And then finally, know your audience, okay? Whenever we develop a website, we need to know who we're targeting. What that means is, are our users, government employees who have to be on IE7, right, or IE8, whatever it may be, or are our users web developers who are probably on the latest version of Chrome, or are our users, the internet as a whole, where maybe 1 or 2% are on IE7 or 8, right? So if we know what browsers we're supporting, then we can do things like use some modern parts of JavaScript that aren't available in every browser, but are available in newer browsers that can do a lot of the nice things that jQuery does without jQuery. And so, for all of these reasons and maybe some more, sometimes there's a question to be asked, do I need jQuery? And so that's why, we teach both to some degree, because there may be a situation down the line where you might not want to use it. However, that being said, we will focus on it in this class because it's a great tool to get up and moving quickly. And that's really our goal here. Okay. So any questions about that before I move on? No? Okay, good. A couple of things from the homework, and then I'll ask if there are any other questions. A few things that came up, a couple of things, I guess, that came up pretty regularly in the homeworks that we graded. The first of which is, class naming conventions. So actually, let me get a marker. So we saw, when you're naming a class, how do you pick a name, or more so, how do you format that name is really the question. So we saw some classes, some style sheets that have this, right? It would have my class, and then maybe below that it would have, this is a terrible marker, Half of these markers are dead. It's no fun. This one's okay. You probably can't even see this, can you? So my class, all lowercase, and then maybe another one that's like other class, right? That has capital letters at the start of each word. Then we see the difference there. Maybe it'd be better if I did it in my text editor. So really, there are a lot of competing theories as to like what's the right way to name a class. Should it all be capitalized? Should it be dashes between words? Should it be what we call camel case with the lowercase first letter and every letter after that capitalized? Well, the answer is like any of those are probably okay. The most popular of which is probably like lowercase with dashes in between each. That's probably the most popular. But any of those are probably okay. The important part is consistency, right? So if you're going to do one class with lower cases and dashes, then every class should be lowercase and dashes, okay? That's really the important part there is consistency. Another thing is you should also, you should also make sure that the word breaks are readable, whether it be through camel case or dashes. The word breaks themselves should be readable. So don't make every letter lowercase if there are multiple words. Just some general rules, but the most important part is consistency. And that's the case in almost every naming situation. Consistency is key. Another thing we encountered was overfloating. Okay, so we've gotten way into floats and we really like them and we're really familiar with them now. But there are some situations where we don't need to float and we're better off not floating. And the key thing that we saw here is if a block element takes up its entire parent, right? If it's 100% width, then don't float it because that's what it's going to do naturally. Okay, so if I have say a P, a paragraph, right, is a block element inside of a div, also a block element, and I want it to be the whole width, then don't float that guy. Just let it be, and it's going to take up the whole width. That's sort of its thing. So, make sure when you're floating something that you need to do it because it's a column in your layout, say, and don't overfloat. Any more comments from the TAs?
I think the use case I saw for kind of overflowable too. For I think the homework assignment, there was a 2-column, like the main article section and the large. And I know I saw a couple places where the next block below it, I think it was a yellow block. I saw a few students who floated that, but then set width 100%. And I think what they were trying to effectively achieve there was clearing the float of the things before it. When really they just needed to not float that box and just use clear both or something like that.
Yeah, cool. What about you, Paul? Did we cover everything?
Yeah, I think that covers all. Yeah.
Cool, yeah. So remember, the way we clear floats is by either using a clear both on the element below them, or we put them in a container that has a clear fix on them, right? Really, those are two strategies. We don't want to be doing something like unnecessarily floating new elements in order to sort of hack together a fix. Okay, any other questions from homework that you had from this Sunday or maybe past homeworks or homework in general? All right. Excellent.
Sorry.
Yeah.
All the classes, are there certain names that are consistently used for certain things on the page? Like if you're using one to center something or the background behind the buttons or things like that.
Yeah, so there's not regularly accepted standards for classes. So I think what you're talking about is utility classes, right?
Yeah,
classes that serve a specific role that you use over and over throughout your page.
Yeah.
No, not really. Some people will denote that the class itself is a utility class, right? They'll say something along the lines of utility dash whatever its job is, in order to sort of signify that is a class that has those properties. But it's by no means is it an accepted standard.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. Any other questions?
if you want to go real deep on naming conventions, just Google them. These are block element modifier. There's very prescriptive ways to
We use another one. Starts with an S. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
What? Maybe it's that. I don't remember. It's probably similar, but I'll post it in resources after this. But yes, there are some people who have very strong opinions about class naming, and there are articles galore written about them. So if you really want some class naming structure, then there are resources for that. Absolutely. Cool. Okay, so what we're going to do now is look at this traffic light we did last class and just sort of talk through the JavaScript that we see there and to sort of prime us for an exercise together, okay? So this is the traffic light that we were looking at last class. And what I'm going to focus on is this area here. Okay, this is our JavaScript. So remember the paradigm we've talked about when we're talking about JavaScript, and you're going to get sick of me saying this, but I'm going to keep doing it because it's important. Is really what we're doing is 3 steps, right? The first thing we want to do is query the DOM, right? Look on the page for elements that we're trying to listen to. And then the next step is we're going to listen for some event, right? Some sort of action, user input. And then finally, we're going to react to that event in some way and do some changes to the HTML or CSS. Okay? So let's just talk through this first. So up here in this first section, lines 1 through 3, we're really doing those first 2 steps, right? We're looking for elements on the page, and then we are listening to some event on those elements. Okay, so I'm going to translate this first line into like English, basically, and then maybe we'll continue from there. So what I'm saying here is find the element on the page that has the ID stop button. Okay, so remember this $sign is jQuery. And the thing that we do first in jQuery is we use a CSS selector, and we'll talk a formal definition for that. We use the CSS selector in order to go in and find some element or elements on the page. So that's what we're doing there. So I'm saying find the element with the ID stop button and listen to its click event, right? So listen for that thing to be clicked. Or wait is another way to put it. Wait for that thing to be clicked. I use the word listen very intentionally because that's the word that you'll see over and over again when you read about these things. Is listening to events. Okay, and then we're saying when that thing happens, do this. Illuminate red. Okay. So that's how we can translate this first line into English. So find the stop button. When it's clicked, illuminate red. Got it? Okay, so I want somebody to help me translate line number 2. So any brave soul? Kevin?
Find in our document anything with the ID of slow button, and then wait for the click, and then the action would be illuminated yellow.
Precisely, right? Yep. So we're just going to find in our document some element with the ID of slow button, and when that element is clicked, illuminate yellow. Question?
Does it always have to be an ID?
No. So we'll look at a bunch of these, but this can be any valid CSS selector, right? So in our style sheets, that first thing in our rule is a selector, right? Anything that's valid there is also valid here. Okay, so this could be any sort of complicated selector, and we'll look at that in a little bit, but this could be anything. It could be a class, it could be a tag, it could be nested selectors, it could be comma separated, multiple selectors. You could do almost anything in there that you could in CSS. Good question. Any more questions about that? All right, so the same goes here. I'll just do it one more time so that we are very sure to know it. We're going to find the element in our document with the ID of go button. We're going to wait for that thing to be clicked, and when it's clicked, we're going to illuminate something green. Now, the final step here is we haven't described what these three things mean, right? Putting some arbitrary words in there, but we haven't defined what they mean. And so the last thing we have to do is tell, our JavaScript program, what do those functions mean? And that's what we're doing here. We're really defining this reaction. Okay. So actually, I should probably make my font a little bigger. I just realized that a few minutes too late. Okay, so we have this function here. Okay. Function, remember we said, is sort of like a recipe in our metaphor, as cooking metaphor that I like to use. And this is really a set of steps. Somebody? Oh, sorry. I thought I heard somebody ask a question. Okay. This is a set of steps that we use in order to react to that click event, right? So we're giving it a name. We chose the name. We chose illuminate red. It sounded good to us. If I were naming the function, I might be a little more specific. I might say like illuminate the stoplight red or something, just to be as very, as specific as I can. And this has two steps. First thing we're going to do is clear the lights, and the second thing we're going to do is find the element on the page with the ID of stoplight, and we're going to modify its CSS by changing the background color to red. Does everybody see that? So the translation of line 7 here is find the element on the page with the ID of stoplight, modify its CSS, and change the background color to red. So up here, we're waiting for the click event to do something. Here, we're modifying the CSS and changing some property to some value. Okay, so now let's do the same thing on line 12. Can somebody help me by translating this line into English? Somebody over here, maybe.
So it's saying to find the ID slow light, or element that's tied to ID slow light.
Right.
And then change the CSS so that the background color is yellow.
Totally right. Exactly right. And why is background color camel case here and not dashed?
Like dashes.
Yeah, I mean, in general, yeah, that's right. I mean, I think actually this would work with a dash too in this situation. But right, you're right. The example from yesterday, we have to do it this way. So, to be safe, when you're in JavaScript, use camel case instead of dashes. Exactly right. Thank you. Okay. Yeah.
It wasn't a camel case, it was two lowercase background and color, or like low uppercase, so I did not read it.
So, if it were this, is that your question?
Yeah, or both capital maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
If it were this or both capital, it would not work. It would not work. And this is one of those small little things that you're going to mess up and you're going to hate yourself because it's going to take 45 minutes to figure it out. But that's okay because that is when you really learn not to screw that up ever again. That's a great lesson to learn. A very frustrating one, but a great one. All right, so let's take a look at one more interesting thing. At the beginning of each of these recipes, these functions, we're doing something called clear lights, right? Well, what is clear lights? It's another recipe that we've defined, and it's right here at the bottom. And let me see if I can get this to scroll up a bit. Can everybody see the bottom of the screen? No? Let me try this. Oh, it really doesn't want me to do that. I'm going to refresh. Oh, there we go. Oh, good call. I think I was just zoomed in one level too far. Everybody see that? Okay, so this is our last recipe, clear lights, okay? So this is interesting, right? This is a little bit different than the ones we've been looking at previously. So who wants to be the brave soul to try to translate this line 21, to English? Yeah, Chris?
All right, so it's you're telling it to look for the ID stop light, slow light, go light, modify the CSS to black before you apply the other function.
Right, well, right, okay. So let's be a little more precise, okay? I'm looking for the ID, stop light, and slow light, and go light. More specifically, what am I looking for in my HTML? It's really a semantic thing here, right? But we're not looking for the ID. We're looking for the elements that have those IDs, right? Okay, so we're looking for potentially 3 different HTML elements, right? One that has this, one that has this ID, one that has this ID. So remember in CSS, you can comma separate things in order to add multiple selectors. We're doing the same thing here. So we're potentially selecting 3 different things. Okay, is that making sense? Mm-hmm. And then we're changing CSS to change what property to what property.
Background color to whatever color it happened to be to black.
Exactly, exactly. Exactly. So your question before, does it just have to be ID? No, it can be something really sophisticated, such as this, right? 3 different IDs. And in our case, because all 3 of those things are in our page, this is actually going to match for 3 items, 3 different elements. And this CSS will modify all 3 of those. Okay. All right, so let's go back to the slides, and then we're going to talk about one more sort of review-y type thing, and then we'll really dive into another exercise. All right, so some definitions. I've been throwing around a lot of words without fully defining them, so I'm going to attempt to do that now. So the first one is, this is sort of a loose definition because we're going to have, half of a class where we talk more about functions. But, for now, a function is a named, right? We choose the name, a named self-contained set of instructions that we can reuse, okay? And, in our metaphor, this is our recipe, right? A recipe, and potentially we need many of them to make our program work. But this is a self-contained recipe that we can name. And I've made a fun one here called Make Grilled Cheese, right? So it's defining some bit of functionality, right? Functionality, see that? All right, and again, we're not going to dwell on these too much today because we're going to spend more time talking about them in detail in future class. So this word event, right? This is the user input that we're waiting for, okay? And this can come in many forms: click, scroll, hover, mouse over, as it's called in JavaScript, that we've talked about so far. Can anybody think of maybe another event that we haven't talked about? Could be, it could be a total guess.
Like you are closing up on the browser?
Closing the browser?
Yeah.
Totally, yes, that's totally an event, yeah. Well done, well done. Any other guesses? Right. Yes, if you fill out a form, there's several events happening there. There's a change event on the inputs. There's also a submission event when you submit the form.
How about that functionality that Spotify implemented for the user when they click the mute button in their keyboard? That they don't want to listen to you.
Yeah.
Is that it?
On key press, yes. On key press, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
There's an on key press event. When you hit a button, you can see what key was pressed and react in some way based on which key was pressed. Totally. Yeah, absolutely. These are all events that happen in the browser. Very good. Yeah. Yeah, there's like a, isn't there an event when a window goes out of focus? A tab goes out of focus? So maybe not like idle per se, but if you're on a tab, you go to another tab, that event is triggered there. Yeah, totally. Awesome.
What does it mean when Windows out of focus?
So you can imagine when you're on a tab in your browser, I'm saying that's in focus, right? I'm using that tab. When I go to another tab, it's now no longer the focus on the browser, right? So that could be an event as well. There's a whole host of events specifically for mobile devices, related to pressing and holding and dragging and things of that nature. So there's a bunch of events, and you can look up, a whole encyclopedia of these things. But what that tells us is we can make our sites very rich by reacting to all these events. Yeah, that was awesome. Wait, well done. And so this other word that I've kind of been throwing around, right, is event listener, or listening to events. Event listener. And sometimes I'll say event handler. Those are sort of used interchangeably in some contexts. This is the function or the recipe whose job it is to respond to those events, okay? So my illuminate red function is an event listener, right? That guy is listening for some click event and it's handling it. Okay, so just wanted to sort of mention some of these. There's one more, CSS selector. And this is a set of characters here that we use to find elements in our page, right? And these are the same things that we use in CSS can be used for jQuery. And we saw a bunch of these, but these would all be valid selectors that we can use in jQuery. So all the elements with the class array, right? All of the paragraphs on the page. All of the paragraphs that are inside of a div, right, in our DOM structure. So we can use nested things. We can also do, all of the table rows, right? Table cells, table data that are inside of an element with the ID of special table, right? So all of these things are possible and more, right, using jQuery, which is kind of why it's so powerful, because it makes it very easy for us to select specific things. Okay, I sort of mentioned this at the top, but I just want to reinforce, right? We're glazing over, we're hand waving over a lot of different syntax in order to sort of hit the ground running and get moving as quickly as possible. And just don't worry about that, because as we go, we're going to start demystifying, each little thing one at a time, so that we can not only make sense of what we're doing, but also at the same time continuing to build cool things, because that's really, what makes it fun. Okay, so now we're going to start on the first exercise, and this is let's do an internet check. Can we get on the internet? So who's still having problems with internet?
If you try to connect and wait, it might take like 2 minutes, but yes. Yeah, straight. I've been online with all class.
I have too, but I think it's because I got in early. Really? Okay, so yeah, so if you are not on, try turning off Wi-Fi for like 30 seconds, and then turn it back on and rejoin GA Guest and see if that works.
Do you want to do a break maybe to?
Yeah, let's do it. We'll break a little early. Try to get your Wi-Fi working during that time. If we can't, we'll rearrange seating so that we're next to somebody who does, and we can just work together. Okay? So let's do that. We'll take an early break here for 5 minutes or so. Get some water, etc. Still no dice, huh? Jessica has some, right? Okay. We'll be all right. Sucks. Let me get some more.
So, and I guess the first question would be, where would you get the
It's all there, it's all there.
I mean, also is, just your useless stuff to be.
What's up?
I'll sneak out in an hour, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's cool.
And then email you our wireframes.
So I posted a Dropbox link in general, so you can do that. If you email it to me, like I'm gonna get it. It's gonna be fine. However you prefer.
Yeah, I
Cool.
can do.
Thank you.
I can figure out.
Sounds good.
Oh, really?
So she has her
Were you guys happy with my filter? Still?
Mine's still not.
her math.
You would.
Our math.
Yeah.
So basically, I offered her that I was going to take this photo. Cut her out, blur everything out, black and white everything, and like tell my style, whatever. That's her. Plus, there's a few forms.
I was doing some poking around last night.
Get a chance to read it.
I think I can get the blog thing to work with an iframe, but a lot of people don't like iframes.
Everybody like.
That's true.
But what I have read was that what I want to use it for is the right thing to use it for, which is just playing one website inside another website.
Okay, yeah, I mean, like, that is the use case. I'm trying to visualize.
So basically, I would have a separate WordPress site set up, and just display the WordPress site in the blog section of my page.
Ah, okay. So you could do that, but is there stuff surrounding it? Like on the page, is there stuff surrounding the WordPress site?
Yeah.
There is. Okay.
That'll just be one component of it.
But there's other things going on your site.
I'm actually planning a single page.
I see. A single page site with the blog being like a little part of it.
Yep.
Okay.
So
That makes sense.
The
Yeah.
JavaScript, one of the parts of the JavaScript is going to be a auto scroll,
Cool.
and I want to have like a floating nav bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's cool. That's a cool technology to know about. So, by all means, I encourage it.
So I got my like look at your shop or no, you just I know it's worth it. I don't care what they are. If they let me on, they're not gonna
All right. Okay, so let's do another quick check. Who still can't get on Wi-Fi? So you three, you two, okay, both of you, but you guys are on. Okay.
I've used that social code guest network once when other Wi-Fi was working, and that did work for me. It was a few weeks ago, so maybe give that a shot.
Okay, what is it? Social code?
Social code _ guest, I think. It's a dash, but yeah.
It just came here.
Dash guest.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet. Okay, so try that.
I don't remember what I did. I'm not on it now.
If your Wi-Fi still isn't working, then try to find somebody whose does and sit next to them so you can work together on the assignments. Okay, so you three, any of you able to get on? So why don't you move to a table where somebody was able to get on? Yeah?
Oh, yeah, but make sure you put in your email. And add on.
You could.
Oh, that's true, I guess.
Yeah, we're like or representatives on tools. Let's use example at example.
Is that a real thing? Do you have to like them.com?
Probably. Jacob Freeman.
Okay. So I want to keep moving. So if you still can't get on, please do sit next to somebody who has internet. I may work on it up here for those that really can't get on it, and there's too many people sharing. Okay. But anyways, now we need to sync. So if you're on Wi-Fi, please, with me, let's sync our repositories by first opening up the GitHub desktop app, as we are one to do. And it opened on the other page. And I'm going to go to FEWD22. Just going to sync that bad boy, get the latest changes. All right, once we have that, I'm going to right click on that in the left-hand nav there, and then open that in Finder. And that's going to give me this. In there, we're going to go into week 5, Intro to Programming, and then class 9, Intro to jQuery. And then I'm going to copy the starter code folder. Okay. Week 5, class 9, starter code. And then once I have that, I'm going to go into Jacob's FEWD, my named repository there, make a new folder, class 9, and then just paste in the starter code. Okay. Ah, that's not a bad idea. I don't have one, but. Actually, oh, you know what I can do? No, never mind. That would require internet.
Did you?
I was like, maybe I'll just upload it to Slack and then everybody will have it. Yeah. God, I'm an idiot. How does this thing work?
Wednesday.
The internet is a series of tubes. All right. Yeah. We could. I think that would be more trouble than it's worth. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to work through it all up here. Okay. So I apologize. Obviously, this is not an ideal situation, but we're going to do our best to do it. Yeah. And so maybe try to follow along as best you can if you don't have the starter code. But I understand that this isn't going to be perfect. All right, so here we go. I'm going to go into the starter code, and I'm going to go into the color scheme switcher. And I'm just going to drag that folder to Sublime Text. Okay. All right, so this is the first sort of code along exercise we did last class, where we have these two buttons, and when clicked, they switch the background color of the page. Okay, and here's the JavaScript that we wrote last class. We're finding the gray button, and when that thing is clicked, switch it to gray, background to gray. This is all written, as you can probably tell, in vanilla JavaScript, right? JavaScript without jQuery. So what we're going to do this time is just convert this to using jQuery, using the knowledge that we gained last class. All right. But before we do that, there's a few things of sort of setup that we need to do in order to make this work. So the first thing is this. We're missing something from this index file. Let me make my font a bit bigger. Does anybody remember what that is that we're missing? So we link to our style sheets by using this link tag, right? How do we load our JavaScript? Well, do you remember? So we need to load our JavaScript somehow into our page.
The link at the bottom for the code.
Yeah, so do you remember what kind of tag that is? It's not a link tag. It's
Oh.
It's in the word. Yes, exactly. We need a Java. No, I'm kidding. We need a script tag. And like we learned last class, the best place to put this is right here before the closing body tag. Okay. So I'm actually gonna enter, and I'm gonna make a script tag. I'm suddenly, TA sanity check. Is it source on a script tag? It is, right? Yeah, okay. So notice that your link tag has an href, right? A script tag has a source, like an image. And that's just a sort of confusing thing, but they both mean pretty much the same thing, which is give me a path to that file. So script tag has a source attribute. The link has a href, like an anchor tag does. Okay, so in this source, we're going to use the relative path to our JavaScript file, right? So in the same way that we use the relative path here to get to our CSS file, we go into the CSS folder, grab the style file. We're going to do the same thing down here before our JavaScript file. So we know where the JavaScript file is, so can somebody help me out with the relative path? Matt, can you help me out with the relative path?
It is JS/index.js.
Right, we're going to go into the JavaScript folder, and we're going to grab that index.js file. Question?
What is media equals screen? I haven't ever seen
We will talk about that more when we talk about responsive design, but what it means is you're using a screen, right, as opposed to maybe like a print or something of that nature. All right, so we're going to go into the JS folder, and we're going to go get the index.js file. Okay? All right, so we're almost good, but we're going to use jQuery this class. And so there's something else we need to do in order to get ready to use this. Yeah, we need to get the jQuery library and add a script tag for that so that we have it available for our use. We talked about there's two different ways to do that. One, we can go and download the file and just add it to our project here. The other way is to get a version that's hosted online on something called a CDN and just use that. So what we'll do is, I don't know, let's do the CDN version. Why not? So I'm going to just Google jQuery. I'm going to click this download jQuery link because I know that's going to go to the right place. And I'm going to scroll down towards the bottom. There's the CDN link.
Is there a benefit to using jQuery version versus Google or Microsoft?
So no, not really. You know, there's a difference between using it, including it in your file versus using the CDN version. One, if you include the file, you can work offline, right? Because you don't have to be connected to the internet to grab it. The other issue is like, well, what if that site's down? What if that CDN goes down for some reason, but your site hasn't? You know, so there's some trade-offs there.
Maybe like might be more reliable.
Yeah, you would hope that the Google CDN is going to be up all the time, but you never know. So we're just going to do this one though. So it's not super important to this class, but I will explain it briefly. Okay, it stands for Content Delivery Network, and it's simply a bunch of what we call file servers that have files on them that we can access through the internet. Okay, so they could have images, they could have JavaScript files, they could have HTML files. Anything that we might need access to, they have it on their servers, so we don't have to have it on ours. That's really what it means. All right, so I'm going to copy this first one here. And I'm going to add it to this page. Now, does anybody want to guess where I should add this? You think I should add it underneath the script tag?
Yes.
Why is that?
Because overwrites whatever
Yeah, that's an interesting theory, right? Because in CSS, right, the order matters. We don't want to overwrite something, some styles that came in the style sheet. So that's a good guess. Not the right answer. Good guess, though. Very good guess. We actually need to include it before our JavaScript file, and the reason is we're using it. We're using jQuery in our JavaScript file, so we need it to be there already by the time we get to ours. Does that make sense? So in order to use it, it's a dependency, right? So we need it to be before.
It needs to go first.
Exactly. It needs to be here because it's a prerequisite to our JavaScript code. So I'm going to paste it there. And I need to check something real quick because I think that's not going to work out of the box. Yes. Yes. So, sort of hard to explain, but when you have this / at the beginning, it's not going to work the way we expect it. So we're just going to have to add the HTTP colon. Essentially, without that, it's trying to load it as if it's a file on your computer, but it's not, and we know that. So we have to add the HTTP colon to tell it it's out on the internet somewhere. Go find it.
Should we update the version number?
We absolutely can. This one's going to be sufficient for this exercise, but absolutely we can get the latest and greatest if we wanted to. 1.12 is plenty sufficient for this exercise, so I'm just going to leave it. All right, so I'm going to save that. So we've linked to our JavaScript file, and we've got jQuery, our prerequisite, in order to start going. So we're ready to rock now. But there's one more thing that we're going to do, okay? I'm going to type it, and then we're going to talk about what it means together. So the first thing I'm going to do, and just a little sublime trick, we may have not talked about this one yet, but I'm just going to highlight all of this code, all 14 lines of it. I'm going to hit Command / or on Windows Control /. And that's going to automatically comment all of that out for me. And so this way I can reference it as I'm typing my new code, but it's not actually code anymore. Now it's just comments. Does everybody see that?
Does this function work in HTML, CSS, all that?
Yes, it'll work in any language so long as the syntax is set properly. So if you save it as a .css file, it'll use CSS comments properly. Yeah. Yes. Should work in any language. Yep, you highlight all of the lines and then hit command, or on your computer, Control/. Yes. And to inverse, to get it out of comments, I can hit Command / again, and it'll turn it back into code. Yes.
You can like hit the stars in the,
It'll do it for you.
you can just, in the CSS, you can just highlight it as a.
Yes, CSS, it'll take care of the stars for you. It'll do all that for you. Yep. Sublime is a good text editor. That's why we gave it to you. Okay. So let's get started. I'm going to type something out here. I'll kind of speak through it as I'm talking about it, but it's not going to make a whole lot of sense at first. We'll kind of talk about what it does, okay? So I'm typing, jQuery, and in there, I'm typing document dot ready. All right. Some brave soul want to attempt to translate what's happening here. I will say it's not too far off from what we've been looking at so far, but it's a little different. You want to guess?
It's looking for something down below the document.
Mm-hmm.
And when it is ready, it will run it.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly right. So it's looking for something called document. Well, it's looking for the document. Right? So the document is our entire page. Right? That's what the document is. And so it's looking for the document, correct? And it's saying when that thing's ready, when my HTML is all good to go, then run my program. Okay? So if we didn't wait for that event, there's a potential that our HTML might not be all set up by the time we start running the program, and that's no good. It's no bueno. So here, we are waiting for that thing to tell us itself that it's ready. That's all we're doing here. Okay, and then we can do something like this. But we have to tell it what that means, right? We have to tell it what run program means. And in here, we can write all of our code in this function. All of our code can go in there. And then we're sure that any code we run is running only after the document's ready. Okay? All right, so if that doesn't make total sense, it's okay. It's just something we have to know about, and we can learn more about it as we go. Okay, now I'm about to blow your mind. So if you're not watching, watch very closely, okay? Here, we're referring to this thing called run program, this function called run program. How you're more often going to see this is like this. Okay. Everybody see that? I know your head's spinning right now. I'm just going to give you I like the silence. I want you to take some time to digest this, to really think about it, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, so all we've done is we've moved our run program function from here to here. And turns out the name is optional. So we just got rid of it because we don't need to call it anymore. We don't need to refer to it anymore. It's all there. So all we've done is take this function and move it there. Okay? So, again, don't worry too much about the syntax. Understand the semantics, right? What we're saying is wait for the document to be ready. When it is, do this. Do this function. Do this, run this recipe, run this program. Okay? Any questions? Yes.
It's a little thing, but
the parentheses, at the very end of the last code bracket.
Yeah, this one?
Yeah.
This is the closing parenthesis of this. Yeah.
Okay.
And a cool thing about Sublime that you'll notice is when you actually put your cursor there, it's going to underline it a little bit, and it'll also underline the one that matches. So if you ever get lost in curly braces and parentheses, you can always look for these little underlines to sort of help guide you.
Would you only use this for a function that you're going to use once?
Absolutely. That is a very insightful question. Well done. Yes, absolutely. If we're only using a function once, that's the reason we don't need to give it a name. If we're going to be using it multiple times, then we'll probably have to give it a name so we can refer to it in multiple places. Yeah, it's a great question. Any more questions about this?
Why is your parenthesis outside the curly bracket? So why is that?
This one?
Yeah.
Because it's closing this one. Okay, so this function is inside of here. Just like before, the name of the function was inside of there. So before, the name was here, right? And now, instead of putting the name, we're actually just putting the thing itself. Because we can. Okay? Again, if this doesn't make 100% sense right now, that's all right. We're going to keep talking about what this means as we go. And it's going to be a constant topic of conversation. But, in general, we're going to have to write this every time we're writing our JavaScript program. So it's something we need to be familiar with. Okay. So, with your partner or, if you have Wi-Fi by yourself, let's take this and translate it into jQuery. Okay. So you can refer back to the slides, you can refer back to the traffic light example, and anything else you need. The TAs and myself will walk around and sort of help you out if you run into trouble. But we're going to take this program and just turn it into jQuery. One note I will say, we can do this, right? Gray. How do I spell gray? We can do this, right? We can put all of our code inside of this, okay? And we will do that. So is anybody like stumped right now because there's no Wi-Fi and they don't know what to do? If that's the case, bring a chair up here and you can work on it with me. Or bring a chair back there and you can work it on with Eric. Or bring a chair back there, you can work on it with Paul. It's a popularity contest. I'm hoping I win. Just kidding. And if you don't have Wi-Fi, also feel free to work with people near you. That's cool too. Yeah. Cool. No, they're fine. Yes. Well, we can pretty much write all this in the same way and just sort of translate it into So I would set up these two things and then click on these. Okay. Yeah, so totally. I would just do these things in order exactly as they are here. And make sure you refer back to the previous jQuery example, so like the stoplight is not doing. So, as you're working, I'm going to slowly start doing it myself, just like line by line, just, sort of prime.
You're close. So this the thing that goes inside of here is not. You should not be looking at this. So you need to. So basically, what's here is something called switch gray, which you have created. So for one, you don't create your words around it. And then the second part would be you need to define what switch gray is. So that's how
Is that like a
so
extension?
this statement is saying go find their ID of gray button. And then whenever someone clicks on it, call a function called switch gray. Now switch gray is not yet defined, but whenever you do define it, this function switch gray will be called, and then within switch gray, so how we have here, you would define what exactly it is you want to have happen. So in this here, they're saying background gray, so you would do that with those two equivalent statements, but just do it in jQuery style rather than doing it this way.
The second thing was you know is that it followed the same syntax as CSS. So right now, what would it be looking for? ID grade button, class grade button.
So just looking at this piece for a second, is there anything over here with ID switch gray? So what is it that we're doing here? What element are we actually targeting in style?
What I was saying was,
Which element
first select is that looking
here?
for ID grade button, class grade button, or select element? So you're talking about so looking for the ID grade button.
So here, what we want to do is target the body, and then we want to set some CSS. So pretend you've got the function written around this. How would you target the body element? Right here.
So I would just say.
But think about it,
Pretend like
CSS, how would you ID grade button, what do I have to do?
Exactly. And then for the CSS part, it's looking for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So jQuery
do them one at a time. So color.
Yeah, no, it should.
And then you have another line just like this one.
That's how CSS is as it stands right
So I
now.
still need to write out functions.
Right, exactly. Now.
So I would say function.
Yes.
So then you put
So that's how I would
add
function.
anything that isn't a variable.
No.
In quotes for jQuery. You just ask a question. Ask an act. And it says.
This first part, what is this saying?
So I
It's the same way you're
thought you
passing
were
a
trying to
string
put
from
out, we
color
could
to
put
gray,
that
you're
all
passing
in
a string
there.
and hashing it.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm doing.
No, I mean, so you just have to remember right with jQuery selectors, here's the CSS level syntax, so pound sign, ID, dot class, nothing.
This needs to be changed to body, right?
Yeah.
So go ahead and update that to the class body, and you're setting the color to white. It's a color,
I don't think document works with document.
So,
So what do you do when you just, yeah.
so after you click gray button,
Do you just like just
switch
body
body function, you're just gonna go say, grab the body,
Yeah.
make it gray, grab the body again,
String.
set the color to white.
Okay.
So
What I'm saying is,
how
if
you
you
set
do it
that,
there, you
how
can
would
do
you
that
make
next.
those a white button?
So you need.
So I would
jQuery needs to
do
close
the
this.
exact thing.
You could say,
Let's, yeah, so do whatever it's
Now-
saying before.
now
Is
it's
that all?
not specific, why would you define them as the
So your function is closed, right?
Right. Otherwise jQuery is looking for the variable body, and has a selector, and so then it'll say, and it'll give you the error body. Yeah, I mean, it's a function. I would prefer some preference, single quotes and double quotes are better. You don't have equals,
So,
which would be like, there's a couple ways to string that's like an element or a class and like, ponder it for now you.
so what he was trying to demonstrate for is that whenever you pass to these things, and you'll notice that this pattern is the same. So you've got ready, you pass the function, you've got click,
Yes, you can change that.
same type of
You can
pattern.
change.
So there's two ways you can do that. One is you can use the second function, but we define here. So here's a function that in between the word flashes is the name of that. That's it. Alternatively, what you could have done was basically.
So it really doesn't, so that's really, that's kind of the fine line with coding between readability and signal.
And then with these two lines of code, that's something to sort of
If you're doing one of those, then definitely do this.
Yeah, there's two ways.
Otherwise, it's
Either way is okay. Like, frankly, I actually prefer this way, doing it because it's really it's nice to have it more readable. And alternatively, it also means it's gonna actually exist. Because all it's saying is, does something called switch break somewhere in this file? If it does, then you still call that thing whenever that happens. And you could put in here just but
Now, this will always stay right here.
Yeah, it's not, you should always be, it's good to be in that mindset, right? For now.
Right.
Although I've seen it in mine, but it's not in mine, but like.
Well, you think
probably
I've seen
after-
people
first record is kind of, that would be like.
oh, do something like
Like they don't have it.
It's the same thing happening, right? You're switching back and forth.
Yeah.
kind of thing.
That'd be like
Switch
after
color, you know, passing gray and white.
when we applied something to change, like.
Because you can say switch color, gray, white.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that this is doing the exact same thing. So I think what they were trying to
That's really the only
when you looked at it, some people after we ran this code, you can see that it updated the body to have the inline slides in here. That is literally what these are doing. Like, if you run
So
this
you know
code,
that you're not.
this says
I
it's gonna say.
expect that would be.
So actually, you can
Yeah, you can declare that, remember, Jacob mentioned it's not like CSS cascades.
So try running it.
JavaScript will find that function in place.
File that's active. Kind of look.
Yeah, you can, yeah. You got it out.
And then if you run the inspector. So now watch your body type.
Declare them as, you could, I would say probably you would, in this case,
So
have a
that
function that makes
CSS
it
command that you ran,
your background color.
that CSS command, that's literally what it's doing. It's inline the style.
So it's basically overriding.
Yep.
Got it.
That would probably be best. Because, again, there are no variables here to set the size and colors that you want, and
Yeah, should be. Try it.
So like, being like color 1, color 2.
Yeah.
You can say, yeah, function switch color, background color, common color.
Right. Switch back to the browser. Open up your inspector. So as powerful as the CSS thing is, where you're actually going to get the most value out of this tool is here. This is what you're going to use to switch white. So if there's ever an error in your code, it's going to pop up here. So what this is saying,
I'm not saving text, it's
that's
21,
21,
so that's we are talking about so once we run that pieces, that's kind of a thing to like that. I might be spoiling the next part. If I did.
Okay. So you need to keep all the and that one as well.
Because now you can say switch color, right, so anything you're passing.
So anything that's separated, you need to
previously defined.
Yeah, like even if it was like here and you wanted to say like,
It wouldn't because,
LI.
yeah, it's an argument, so you think.
Yes, you're correct, but for a completely different reason.
Okay.
What this is doing is this is saying, I want to call, like, whenever you see this and then open friends, that's saying execute a function, and these are pass to it. It was always going to become separated. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to start doing it up here. So if you're really stuck or you want to sort of walk through with me, I'm going to talk through it as I go. So if you're on a roll and you want to keep chugging away, please do, but I'm going to start talking through it. So what I've already done so far, and I'm going to get rid of this because I'm going to just start from the beginning. What I've already done so far is I've set up this event listener, right? I've set up an event listener. What I've done is I'm querying my document using this jQuery. I'm querying my document. I'm looking in my document for an element with the ID of gray button. Once I've found that, I'm saying attach an event listener for the click event, right? That's another way of saying the same thing where I say wait for the click event or listen to the click event. Attach a click event listener called switch gray, okay? So when a click happens on this gray button, do this thing, okay? And now I can do the same thing for the white button. So I'm going to look in my document, look in my page for an element with the ID of white button. And when that element is clicked, I'm going to do something else called switch white. Okay. All right, so what's the next step here? Anybody want to help me out? Just generally, what's the next step? Right, we have to define what these are referring to because we haven't told it what that refers to yet. So we have to define switch gray and switch white. And the way we do that is the same way we do it up here, right? We define it in the same way. A function is a function is a function. It doesn't matter if we're using jQuery or not, okay? So we're going to define a function with the name switch gray. Oops. And we're going to put those into parentheses and some curly brackets there. And inside of those curly brackets is where we're going to give it the instructions for how to switch gray. All right, so the next step is we've got to find some element on our page. What element is it that we're looking for? So let's read this line number 7. Can somebody read this and translate this to English for me? Line number 7.